these four groups of methods, yukti is like yoga as a method, they are then explained in the following. We may not do the whole, because this is quite extensive, but we will get some examples of these practices. So vikalpakshaya, the solution of thoughts, is of course corresponds to Shambhava Upaya, to the highest Upaya. But as we had it in the very first Dharana of the Vijnana Bhairava, is by the dissolution of thoughts, by nirvikalpa, by a state of nirvikalpa, you enter into the central dhatu. So it is again from the higher level, you come to the result at the lower level. From the level of Shambhava, you come to the Anava and Shakta. So here, he says it's an easy means, and then I'll ask Aditya to read the Hindi translation of by the same Jaidev Singh, which in some cases is a bit clearer. By an easy means by which one can dispense with all the factors of rigorous disciplines like pranayama, mudra, bandha, etc., these yogic disciplines. When an aspirant keeps his chitta, his individual consciousness, concentrated on the sambit or chit, and here Hridaya. So I'm sorry, he should have always translated Hridaya as heart. Of course, heart is always consciousness. So I prefer here, instead of Sambit or Chit, concentrated on the heart. And we will have the very last teaching we will have is exclusively on the heart. So this is one method which is here put at the beginning without all these yogic disciplines like pranayama, etc. Hridaya Nihitas Chitta, this Nihita is very beautiful. Is there any better Hindi version? You should have the mic.
एक सरल उपाय है जिसके द्वारा प्राणायाम, मुद्रा, बंध इत्यादि कष्टकर साधनाओं से छुटकारा पाया जा सकता है। यह उपाय है जब साधक अपने चित्त को हृदय में स्थापित अर्थात एकाग्र करके बतलाए हुए उपाय से अपनी वास्तविक दशा के बाधक विकल्प को बिना अन्य किसी प्रकार के चिंतन के रोक कर अविकल्प के आश्रय द्वारा जो देह इत्यादि से दूषित नहीं है, ऐसी अपनी परमार्थिक चेतना को प्रमाता समझने का अभ्यास कर लेता है।
Yes, thank you. This is again a very long sentence. Maharaj was very fond of long sentences. So, and it is very clear, and we'll try to follow the English also. So instead of concentrated on the heart, instead of restraining, stilling by the method alluded to, the vikalpas that obstruct staying in one's real nature. See, the main obstacle which prevents us from being in our real nature, are the vikalpas, our thought constructs, our imaginations, our artificial perceptions, which are not corresponding to the true nature. These are the vikalpas. Akinchichintakatvena prasamayam. Now this Akinchichintaka is a description of Shambhavapaya in the Malini Vijotra Tantra. Not thinking anything else. Not thinking without thought. Which of course, I would say, it's not so easy. That's why you need methods to free yourself from these vikalpas. Avikalpa paramarshena. Vikalpas that obstruct staying in one's real nature by not thinking anything whatsoever. And thus, I would say here, by concentrating on the thought-free state, he becomes used to the habit of regarding his chit as the real knower, untarnished by the body, etc. And so within a short time only he attains absorption into Turiya, the fourth state, and the state transcending Turiya, Turiyatita, which are on the point of expansion again, or unfolding. Turiyatita Samavisa Masat. Umishat Vikasam. Now this is the first, and this is easy way. As we have seen already, the higher you go, the easier it is. Only it requires the most developed awareness. That if your awareness is highly developed, then it's not difficult. It's easy. So the only only the obstacle to our making it then complicated. You have to go through so many practices to again liberate us from all these obstacles and vikalpas and so on. But in itself it is easy. And that is why, I mean, if you look at the history of spirituality of saints, those saints who were not mentally, who were of a simple nature, they got it very quickly. Like Ramana Maharshi was just 16 years old, so there was not much in him. I mean, he went to school, so he had some impressions, of course, but still a kind of childlike nature that it could happen in a moment without any complicated practices and thought and so on. So the simpler or the less complicated we are, the easier is the means. And I think this is a general principle, because otherwise, even if you go to a very high guru and you have so many ideas in your mind, you're not even ready to receive. I have seen that even with Swamiji, and so it depends on our qualification, and if we are open, unobstructed, if we don't put any hindrances in between, then we can get it very quickly. So this is what this is easy means. And at the very end of the philosophical text, Ishvara Prativijñākārika, Utpaladeva says, this is the easiest way. And again, for those who are capable to catch it. And then comes the next. Yeah, he quotes also Ishvara Prativijñākārika. By giving up vikalpa and by one-pointedness of mind, one gradually reaches the stage of divinity, Ishvaraship. Vikalpa haneya anena ekagriyat kamena ishvarata padam. And then the beautiful sentence from the Spandakarika, which is exactly what I have just been saying. Yada kshobha praliyeta tada syat parampada. Wherever our agitation, our ceases, there is the highest state. It's only kshobha. We are so agitated, we are so confused, and that only prevents us from being in that highest state, which is our very own nature. How does it translate? When mental agitation would dissolve, then would ensue the highest stage. हिंदी में क्या है?
जब मानसिक क्षोभ लीन हो जाता है, तब परम पद की प्राप्ति होती है.
But actually, it's very clear, and is very frequently quoted, that our only obstacle is this agitation on this. Yeah. And then he quotes from Tantra Jnanagarbha. When, O mother, man renounce all mental activities and are poised in a pure state, being free from the bondage of the pursuit of sense activities, then by thy grace is that supreme state realized at once, which rains down the nectar of undiminished and unparalleled happiness. It's a beautiful verse. Vihaya Sakala Kriya. Up Hindi mein बोलो.
हे जननी, जब लोग सारी मानसिक क्रियाओं को छोड़कर इंद्रियों की क्रियाओं की अनुसरण रूपी परतंत्रता से मुक्त होकर शुद्ध भाव में स्थित होते हैं, तब तुम्हारे अनुग्रह से तत्काल उस उत्कृष्ट दशा की अनुभूति होती है, जो कि अक्षुण्ण निरूपम सुख रूपी अमृत की वर्षा करती है.
So this was the first, that is Vikalpa Kshaya, among these four. And then he says this means has been described first because it is the highest and because it has been taught in the Prativijñana doctrine. The Sankocha of Shakti, though not taught in the Prativijñana doctrine, have been nevertheless mentioned by us on account of their belonging to the sacred tradition, means also to the Vedic Upanishadic tradition. And their incidental connection with it. Now, this is a very beautiful sentence which you can retain when you go home. If many means are described, some one may enter the state of Samavesha through any one of them. This is the beauty of this tradition and all the texts we have studied. You have a whole choice of practices, and whatever appeals to you, whatever touches you, and if you practice that, so you don't have to follow just everybody has to do the same. No, there's a variety of practices depending on your state of consciousness, depending on your spiritual development. You have a whole choice of practices and experiences. So both these words, Shakti, Sankocha, Vikasa, are here meant in a positive sense. Here Sankocha is not negative. Sankocha means withdrawing within, interiorization. And there he, of course, he gives the classical verse from the Katha Upanishad. Paranchikani yatrinat swayambhu tasmat param pashyanti na antaratmam kaschit tira pratyat atma atmanam aikshat avrita chakshur amritatvam ashnam. This verse is always quoted when it is a question of interiorizing the senses. So in his translation, the self-existent, that is the creator, one pierces the openings of the senses outward. Hence one looks outward, not within oneself. Some wise man wishing to taste immortality, it's nice this is this, with eyes turned within, avita chakshu, beholds the immanent self. I'm not very happy with translation. See that the normal human awareness always going out, the senses moving outside. But then this very nice phrase, Kaschitira, there was some sage, and he wanted to experience the self within. So he turned his, now avita chakshu, I already told you, chakshu, the eye, stands for all the senses. It's not so much in the Upanishad, but he has always interpreted only as turning the eyes within. But in our Tantra, it's all the senses. This is more difficult. So that Thira, that wise one, desiring direct experience of the self, he turned his eyes within and attained Amitatvam. Again, we have this Amita, a double meaning, that immortality, or the blissful nectar of immortality, which is maybe not meant here, but definitely immortality. So I think that is well known, we don't need a hint for that. So this is Sankocha of Shakti. It means a process of withdrawal. And this sudden turning back from all sides of the externally spread Shakti, like the contraction of the limbs of the tortoise, and its withdrawal into the interior on the occasion of fear. In many yoga texts, this example is given, that the yogi, he withdraws his senses like the tortoise. When you touch a tortoise, and just all the legs will be withdrawn inside. It's very beautiful, all these examples from life or from animal, as we heard yesterday, the birds, which give us so many teachings. So the tortoise just withdrawing all her limbs inside, and that is Sankocha of Shakti. Maybe the next sentence you can also, as has been said, it being liberted, there is resting in the ever-present Atma. Now, ever-present, I prefer timeless, akrama, timeless. Because of Shakti hidden within results. No, this is the next practice. Sankocha of Shakti we had now. And if that sentence maybe in Hindi would be clearer. Jahan. ये जो संस्कृत में प्रसिद्ध आया अभी बात गुमा अनुरोध न, वो तो ठीक है. उसके बाद
इंद्रियों के बाहर फैली हुई शक्ति
tat this quotation tat apotrite ityodita sthiti.
इंद्रियों की बाहर फैली हुई शक्ति को चारों ओर से बटोर कर भीतर की ओर पलटना.
नहीं, अभी नहीं. Let us come to that. Yeah. Just a moment. Now, the Upanishadic example of the Kata Upanishad is very clear, the withdrawal of all the senses within. And then the more tantric practice is Shakti Vikasa. That means expanding or throwing out all the senses simultaneously. We throw out our senses one by one, but that is our normal activity. But simultaneously, and this is a tremendous, very powerful practice. And here I have one quotation which for me is somehow the highest point of this whole commentary here. It is a quotation from the Kakshya Stotra. Yes, but before there is a quotation from Abhinavagupta's Anubhava Nivedana, Anta Lakshya Bahyadrishtir Nimesha Mesha Rajita. So this is at the beginning of page 98 in the Sanskrit, Shakti Vikasa. Now, the expansion of the energy. Yeah, results from the simultaneous opening of all the sense organs, what you just read. And this quotation, Anta Lakshya Bahyadrishti, there's a beautiful stotra by Abhinavagupta, Anubhava Nivedana, the offering of experience. And it's very brief, but it expresses completely the state of a Jivanmukta, which was his own, of course. Keeping your lakshya, your inner aim within, but throwing your senses outside. So being established within and your lakshya, what you want to, a goal, the inner goal, but opening your eyes and throwing the senses outside. Under Lakshya Bahyadrishti. If you look at those who have been to the upper little temple to Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, his eyes are wide open, but he's completely inside, of course. So this is the higher state. And this, in our tradition, it is called Bhairavi Mudra. Bhairavi Mudra means open eyes and completely internalized. Only if you're completely within, and then you open the eyes and then you don't see any object. It's not seeing any object. So this is the example from Anubhava Nivedana. And now comes this Bhairaviya Mudra, Anupravesha Yuktya, Bahit Prasaranam. And then he quotes this Kakshya Stotra, which for me is a text of enlightenment. Sarva, I have made my own translation, and then we hear to the listen to the Hindi also. I just read my translation. You can read Jaidev Singh's. Having simultaneously cast all the energies, each in its own object, like a golden pillar, you, and Shiva, you alone shine forth as the foundation of the universe. It is tremendous, powerful. It expresses a mystical experience. Sarva Shaktish Chetasa Darshan Madhya. Because Jaidev Singh translates by will, it's not will. Chetas means by awareness. All the, yes, you read the Hindi.
हे शिव, दृष्टि इत्यादि सारी शक्तियों को अपनी चेतना द्वारा अपने अपने विषय में एक साथ चारों ओर फेंक कर भीतर स्वर्ण स्तंभ के समान अचल रूप से वर्तमान रहते हुए तुम ही एक विश्व के आधार प्रतीक होते हो।
Very powerful. See, throwing all your senses simultaneously out to their objects and remain established within like a golden pillar. Now this golden pillar, for me, it's an expression of a mystical experience. And then you, means Shiva, alone shine as the foundation of the universe. It's a tremendous, very powerful verse. So first of all, it's not easy, the practice of throwing out. That's why I always give the example also in we have these paintings in Aichi of the Siddhas. There's one of Milarepa also, and here of the Padmasambhava. Now full open eyes, full all the senses outside, but completely established within. It's like a golden pillar. You can't take it, I told you in the beginning. If you don't have that experience, you can use that verse for meditation, as a meditation verse. Even you can't practice it yet, but you can focus on that in meditation and something will happen. That I promise you. And then he quotes Kalata. Kalata, the great scholar, has also said that is the unfoldment or vikasa of Madhya Shakti is accomplished by transformation, even in the presence of forms, etc. Rupadishu parinamat tat siddhi. हिंदी में क्या कहते हैं?
रूप इत्यादि के रहते हुए भी परिणाम द्वारा अर्थात रूप इत्यादि के अनुभव के समय जो चेतना बाहर की ओर जाती हुई प्रतीत होती है, उसके विषय में यह बोध बनाए रखना कि यह वही है जो आंतरिक चेतना है, उसकी अर्थात शक्ति विकास की सिद्धि है।
हाँ, this has gone beyond the quotation. So far as Sankocha and Vikasa of Shakti, so withdrawal and expansion of Shakti are concerned, Vikasa, expansion, connotes the practice of the condition of expansion and resting of Shakti in the stage of the Urdhva Kundalini. Now here we have a clear reference to Kundalini. Gradually brought about by the restraint of the prana between the eyebrows, which is accomplished by the power of the subtle prana, which develops gradually through the regulation of the vibrations in the cavities of the nose. This is some practice connected to Madhya. So there are two aspects of Kundalini are mentioned here, Urdhva Kundalini, the rising, and Adha Kundalini. Actually, for those of you who have the book or who would like to go deeper into it, here Jaidev Singh has given very extensive notes. So all this, because it's very dense, the text is very dense. So his notes, also in the English translation, are very useful. And definitely, of course, based on the teachings of Swamiji. And here we have a quotation from Vijnana Bhairava in relation to Adha Kundalini, whose location is indicated by the Vedakanda, that is the lowest chakra. After strengthening the prana shakti, there is entrance or absorption in its root, tip and middle. So here, of course, the Vijnana Bhairava gives all these examples, and we cannot go into the details here. I would come to the next, that is Vaha, that we are used to, the Prana and Apana, the two. Cutting of the vahas, of the flow of breath, vahayo, the left and the right. While both vahas is to be understood, prana and apana, of which one is concerned with the right and the other is concerned with the left, nadi or channel. Cheda means cessation or pause by the sounding of anarchika sounds. This is another kind of practice described in the Vijnana Bhairava, like actually inwardly, before which, however, they should be stopped in the heart. And there he quotes the Jnana Garbha. So Vaha Cheda. Now Cheda is cutting of this movement. Vaha is a movement. Stopping. It's a stopping. Yeah, but
दोनों बाहों का अर्थात प्राण और अपान का, जिनमें से अपान वामगत सुषुम्ना की बाईं ओर है और प्राण दक्षिणगत सुषुम्ना की दाहिनी ओर है, छेद हृदय में रोककर अनत स्वर रहित ककार, हकार इत्यादि वर्णों के उच्चारण से विक्षेप.
And then he gives a quotation from the Tantra Jnana Garbha. In the heart lotus of one whose mind has been controlled, whose two nadis, or two channels, extending on both sides, have been stilled by the restraint brought about by sounding powerless and whose blinding darkness has been dispelled, arises that sprout of your knowledge, O World Mother, which is adequate to produce parameshaship even in the Pashu. So this also leads to a state of divine power, divinity. And this is between the 2 points. The first point is the heart, the last point is the measure of 12. But you know, most of you who have done Shaiva Yoga, this Dvadashanta, external Dvadashanta, is of 12 fingers above the Brahmantra. So from the heart to this end of Dvadashanta. These are the 2 points. That's very beautiful. Vishranti avasare nipadanam, chitta niveshamena parashilanam. To practice and making it rest, Vishranti. Madhya. आदिकोटि हृदय.
आदिकोटि हृदय, अंतकोटि 12 अंगुलियों का अंतर, निभालन इन दोनों हृदय और द्वादशांत में प्राण के उमड़ने और समाप्त होने के अवसर पर चित्त लगाने का अभ्यास.
So there are several dharanas in Vijnana Bhairava connected with this practice, which we have done definitely in the first first day, that the lotus of the heart, the two lotuses on that space, empty space in between. So this is here quoted as an example. Vidyakash Nirilaksha Atma Sambuddha Madhyaka. That was our meditation already on the first session. And many have taken this as a meditation also. The two lotuses and the space, the center, Madhya, in between, emptiness. So there are several examples given from Vijnana Bhairava. I'm not going to take the whole of this commentary, which is many quotations, etc. Again, there are many verses from Vijnana Bhairava quoted in that context. But we can come to page 102, Madhya Vikasat Chitanandalabha Sa Evacha Parana Yoginaha Acheta Samavesha. From the development of the Madhya results the attainment of the bliss of the spirit. This attainment indeed is the samadhi of the highest yogin, known also as samavesha, and its complete absorption, samapatti, and other such synonymous terms. For bringing about its permanence, that is the permanence of samadhi, the following method has been mentioned. This is, again, we have been concerned about stabilizing of this practice or experience, bringing about its tasya nityoditatve yuktim aha. Now this is a beautiful term used again and again. That consciousness is actually nityodita. She is always arisen. Vihadata is parashakti. She is always arisen. Nityodita. And to reach that state of the ever arisen consciousness, nityodatve yuktim, then he tells the method in the next sutra. But I will only give you the sutra and not the commentary, because that is exactly Sutra 90. Samadhi samskara vate yutane puyo puyaschit aikyam amarsha nityodita samadhi labha. So the attainment of the ever arisen samadhi. Okay, let us first read this translation and then in Hindi. In Vyutana means the external consciousness, which is full of the after effects of samadhi. There is the attainment of permanent samadhi by dwelling on one's identity with Chit over and over again. So this is something which continuous practice. Don't think that only once and then it is done. Samadhi samskara vati vyutane, and this is a beautiful expression. In the waking state, when you go back to your business in the outer world, and you carry with you the impressions of samadhi, you carry with you the impressions of the meditation and the study and all, whatever you have. So this is samadhi samskara. Vati yutane. But then also you have to again and again, puyas, keep your awareness on that unity of consciousness, Chit Aikya, आमर्षात, हिंदी में सूत्र, केवल सूत्र।
समाधि के संस्कार से परिपूर्ण विधान में बार बार चित्त पारमार्थिक चेतना के साथ अपने ऐक्य का चिंतन करते रहने से शाश्वत सदा प्रकट समाधि का लाभ होता है।
Yeah, this is the practice leading to the ever arisen state of samadhi. So then you don't come down to a state of subject-object and being in all its dualities and so on. But Nityodita Samadhi, which first you are aware of these impressions of the Samadhi even in the waking state. You go to the market or to do your job, anything. You keep those impressions of the Samadhi. And then you again and again pay your attention, pay your awareness to that. And then that state of ever arisen Samadhi can happen. So this is, we leave this as the last instruction. And I especially request you to remember that one sutra, Madhya Vikasat Chittananda Labha. By the expansion of the Madhya, you attain the bliss of consciousness. So it's a very short sutra. At least if you remember one sutra or maybe two sutras, whatever. But this is so central and it's so important. Madhya Vikasat. It is here.
Yes, you can write it.
I think we could, if tomorrow morning before we have a sharing session, I will give you still something on the heart, Hridaya, some input, and then we have our sharing, and so that is the end. So today I think we can again start our meditation a bit earlier, and then also before lunch we have a group photo outside, and you will. So I think it's better to stop here and you retain at least one or two of these sutras, also this Samadhi Samskara. Samadhi Samskara. Otherwise we always fall into that duality between meditation, practical life, Samadhi and Udana. So it is the overcoming of that duality by retaining those impressions, keeping them very deeply, and then slowly you will attain the state of Nityodita, ever arisen Samadhi. Namah Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya Satatam Panchakritya Vidhayine Chidam